I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise and all I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife. EBEORIETEMETHHPITI.
I like killing people.
Hello, and welcome to Unknowable, the podcast where we talk about all things mysterious, unusual, or unknowable. I'm Justine.
And I'm Gray. Some weeks we break down one larger mystery between the two of us. Other weeks we pick two smaller mysteries on a theme and teach each other about them based on our own independent research. If you want to support the show, go on Apple Podcast, subscribe, rate, and review. Check us out on Patreon and become a patron. And find us on social media at unknowablepodcast.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
So today,
We're talking about
the Zodiac Killer.
the Zodiac.
Yeah.
That was that super creepy intro that we just read.
Yeah, that was his first cipher.
The one and only cipher of his that's been decoded.
Yeah.
Which is wild to think.
And it's creepy as hell.
Creepy as hell.
I
And-
always forget the human slave part.
Yeah. God, that's like the weirdest thing is like,
Why?
it just seems like he's just like wants like the attention, but then you read that and you're like, oh, there's something not right going on there.
No, there's something not right at all.
And like what really gets me too is like it's super creepy and dark, but also like all the misspellings. Like he spells the word animal ANAMAL.
Mm-hmm.
He just full on like I had to like edit that with a pen just to be able to read it because it's so like you just like type something real quick, no punctuation, and then just like sent it off.
Yeah.
But he had to like type that out and then translate it into a cryptogram
Right.
using a cipher and then send it out. So like he spent a lot of time with these words.
A lot of time. Which I guess makes sense. I mean, the cryptograms don't have punctuation.
Right.
Which is part of what makes them so difficult.
Right. That's true.
So I'm like impressed that somebody even got that.
Right.
Really. I mean, and cryptograms are fun though.
Right.
Once you...
I just don't have like a brain for that.
Yeah.
I think it's like a little mathematical and I just don't.
It's like, they're fun because if you do the ones just like in those stupid puzzle books, it's like you have certain words that if you see like a 3-letter word that seems like it reappears, like you're like, that's probably the.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can try to like guess that. Sometimes it's just a matter of guessing, like put the in and then use that code and see if that works for everything else. But there are definitely a couple, like he spells paradise with a C, and that's not the only letter of his where he does that. So he definitely...
He spells collecting, but like collect IOG.
Yeah. Yeah, we know that he typed these on a typewriter, so I'm like, there are such a thing as typos.
Right.
So that is a thing.
But I feel like the whole cryptogram effort would like catch a lot of those spelling mistakes.
You would think.
It's strange.
Yeah, you would just think that he'd come up with the message and then proofread it.
Right.
And again, some of those are up. Animal and paradise, obviously those are legit.
Right.
He thinks they're spelled that way, but the other things were like, dude.
Come on,
man.
Spell
That probably
check.
made it so much harder.
Right.
I hate when you do a cryptogram and you have a word that's spelled wrong and you're just like, what the hell did I do? Was this a mistake?
Is this
Like,
on
did I do
purpose?
something really wrong? So, yeah. So the Zodiac Killer, for those who don't know,
Yes.
unidentified serial killer who was in like Northern California from the late 60s into the early 70s.
Yes.
The Zodiac Killer obviously is just his pseudonym. We don't know what his real name is.
Right.
Because he's never been
named
caught.
himself.
Yes, he named himself.
Some serial killers get named like by the newspaper, like the police, but he chose the name the Zodiac.
The Zodiac.
He opens a couple of his letters with like, "This is the Zodiac speaking."
Yep. Which is creepy.
Super creepy.
And yeah, signs some of his letters with just a Z.
Z or the T with a circle.
Yeah.
Like a
His
crosshair.
little, exactly, yeah, like a crosshair. So, yep, there's been a lot of suspects,
Yep.
both by law enforcement and amateur investigators, because there's been a lot of amateur investigators.
Ourselves included.
The case currently at the San Francisco Police Department is inactive, but I think it said that it was reopened at some point prior to like March 2007.
Interesting.
I don't know if it's still open. I know there are a few other smaller police departments that do currently still have it open.
Right. I think too they're using, now that they caught the Golden State Killer, using DNA from like Ancestry.com or something like that.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to do that same thing with the Zodiac because a few of his letters, they can pick up DNA from behind the stamp.
Yeah.
And that makes it more likely to be like an isolated sample of his DNA.
Exactly.
So they could get like a partial match and
Which would
then
be crazy.
narrow it down. So like in our lifetime, we could see the Zodiac Killer like confirmed.
They just started doing that last May,
Right.
where they were gonna like start to try to look into the DNA part because obviously things are much different than they were in the late 60s.
Right.
As far as that stuff goes, so it's very possible.
Yeah.
Which would be crazy. Obviously, at this point, based on his estimated age, he's probably at least in his mid 80s.
Yep.
If not older, but he could still be alive.
Oh yeah.
So we have no idea. But yeah, there were something like 2,500 suspects over a period of years that were investigated.
Jeez.
Nobody was ever conclusive.
Kind of like D.B. Cooper.
Exactly. And so no update on the stamped DNA so far.
Interesting.
Which from what I've read, it seems like the only update that there would be an arrest.
Right.
Like they're not going to announce like, oh, we've got some
narrowing it
suspects.
down.
Yeah, like they're just going to not say anything until it's like boom.
Right.
So, but that would be a sweet headline to see.
Wow. We'll have to do
Zodiac
a
Killer.
follow-up episode.
Yeah, be awesome. So yeah, we'll get into later the big suspects.
Yeah.
Which really aren't that many.
No.
Surprisingly. So I was just saying to you before that I honestly think that he's a little bit more prolific in kind of legend and myth than he actually was as a killer.
Yeah.
I knew a bit about the Zodiac Killer before this.
Yeah.
But,
So what did you know before you started doing this research?
Well, I knew about the letters and the ciphers.
Yeah.
I knew about him naming himself.
Right.
I knew that he hadn't killed that many people. I knew that he wasn't like, had victims like in the 20s or 30s. Like I knew he was
Right.
pretty, I mean, not that you want to have a lot of murder victims,
Right.
but as far as serial killers go, he's
Right.
kind of low on the list, like
Exactly.
numbers wise.
He was all about quality, not quantity.
Yeah. I knew like the one murder of his, again, that we'll go into more detail, but the one that I always have in my head is the Lake Berryessa one,
Yes.
where he's wearing the creepy hood.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like I can, like, that was like the one that pops into my head when I think about him, like with his symbol on it and everything. Like,
Yep.
dude,
Relax.
he got one branded outfit and then just ditched it for the rest. Like, all right.
Branded.
But that was most of what I knew. I obviously knew he hadn't been caught.
Yeah.
And I thought the last time we were in San Francisco, because we like kind of hung around like the Presidio area for a day or two just and explored. And every time I go there, I always remember that he shot that one cab driver there. So
Right.
I didn't remember it like in the moment. I didn't really want to go like to that street necessarily.
Right.
But I like had that in the back of my head, like, oh yeah, there was one of the Zodiac killings happened around here. But that was most of what I knew.
Yeah. I knew about the same. Like I knew he was a serial killer. I knew about the Lake Berryessa, like him wearing the hood.
Yeah.
And I've seen the movie, I think it's called The Zodiac or Zodiac.
With Jake Gyllenhaal.
With Jake Gyllenhaal, directed by David Fincher.
Yep.
I remember enjoying the movie, but I don't remember anything about it.
Right.
So I didn't know any of like the details of this case.
I would really like to rewatch it now.
Right. Now that you've kind of have an overview of it.
Yeah.
Me too.
So I would like to read more about some of the investigators on it because I think the movie, like I think Jake Gyllenhaal's character in the movie is one of the investigators or one of the journalists maybe.
Right.
So I'd like to read more about them and then watch it again to see how it stacks up.
Right.
Probably be disappointed.
Probably. But David Fincher does a good job.
Yeah. And I'm okay with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
We just watched Velvet Buzzsaw the other day.
Oh yeah.
It was all right.
It was all right.
He's like kind of half naked a lot.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of that.
Well.
I'm not really attracted to him, honestly.
He's weird. Like I just think of him as Donnie Darko.
Yeah, well, yeah. And my husband was like, oh, he's like kind of old now. And I was like, A, he's not really that old. And B, he was like never hot. I mean, he's young in Donnie Darko. I wasn't like, ooh.
No, he's like this weird, scrawny little dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't get it. So, yeah.
We'll have to rewatch the Zodiac. All
Zodiac.
Right, let's get into some of these murders because there's a lot.
There's a lot.
There's a lot to unpack here.
Okay, so I've got a whole timeline here. Some of these murders are not confirmed Zodiac murders.
Right. There's a lot of that throughout the story. Is like people who we think are the Zodiac and who like, or like some letters that may have come from the Zodiac, but there's a lot of like ifs.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that seems like it could have been, but he's honestly a hard serial killer to pin things on because, as we talked about, like he doesn't have a super clear and consistent MO with his killings.
Right.
So it's not
All
like
of them
every
have.
killing is basically the same formula. They really jump around kind of a lot.
Right.
Like, all 5 of his confirmed murders are different.
Right.
Not hugely different. I mean, the Lake Berryessa one's pretty different, but
That's wild.
that one's kind of an oddball, but all of them are different in some important way that usually serial killers don't stray that much.
Right.
So, so the first one that's potentially pegged to the Zodiac, which is not, this is not a confirmed kill, Robert Domingos, 18, and Linda Edwards, 17. This is June 4th, 1963. They were on a beach near Gaviota, California.
Sure.
Got a whole map here. This will come in handy later.
Yep.
So let's see. That Gaviota is like way, way south. That's like down near Santa Barbara.
Okay.
If you're familiar with California. That's like southern tip. Well, not quite as far as Los Angeles, but it's down there. So this was these poor kids skipped school for senior ditch day.
Damn. Oh, yep.
Yeah, which sucks.
Right.
Police believe that the assailant tried to tie them up, but they freed themselves and tried to run, and so he shot them a bunch.
Jesus.
Like, something like, I can't remember exact numbers, but they each had quite a few.
That's like a theme with his murder, too. Is like people not being tied up correctly, people escaping, partially escaping.
Yeah, trying to run
dying.
away.
He's kind of a shitty serial killer.
He's a shitty serial killer.
Yeah.
I really like just...
He's bad at his job.
I didn't know. Yeah, he's bad at his one job. Yeah, he shot them a bunch, and then he put them in a shack and tried to burn it down, but failed at that too.
Right. Oh, he
didn't
failed
even
to
burn
burn
it
the
down.
shack down. Yep.
So again, this is not confirmed. They thought that this might have been... This was a very similar killing to the Lake Berryessa one, in the sense that he tried to tie them up and ended up shooting them. Although again, as you'll see, this still differs from the Lake Berryessa one.
Very much so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that was potentially his first. 1963, boom. Then there's nothing else for 5 years.
Yeah.
So Zodiac, as you'll come to find out later, has taken credit for a lot more murders than have even potentially been pinned on him.
Right.
So it's possible that he killed other people in those 5 years. We don't know.
Don't know about it. Like, I get the impression that a lot of these murders, we wouldn't even know it was him if he hadn't taken credit for it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's possible there's a lot that just flew under the radar.
Right.
And he's so, like, out there with every single MO that, like, you wouldn't be able to string them together.
No. So, do you want to talk about the Lake Herman one?
Is that Betty Lou Jensen?
Yep.
David Faraday?
David Faraday.
So they were on a first date.
Yep. Sad.
Sitting in their car in Lover's Lane. The Zodiac. So a lot of this is pieced together from the like tire treads and like the physical evidence left at the scene. So it looks like a car pulled up beside them and then pulled behind them. And Zodiac came out, ordered them out of the car. The woman, Betty Lou, was getting out of the car, and she was already out of the car, and then David Faraday was getting out of the car, and as David Faraday was getting out, Zodiac shot him in the head as he was getting out of the car, and then Betty Lou tried to run, and he shot her like 10 times in the back.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it's just super random. It seemed almost like he was just cruising around. Like there wasn't a ton of premeditation. It's not like he chose these people on purpose. They just happened to be like in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
Which sucks.
And they both died, right?
Yes.
Yes.
They both died.
They both died. So yeah, shitty first date.
Right. Real shitty first date.
Really shitty. It makes me think too how like because they were kind of just parked on like a gravel,
Like shoulder.
Yeah, a little shoulder, which I mean, that's another one I think that sticks into my head a little bit because I think it maybe is subconsciously part of why, like, if I'm ever in an area like that and like a car pulls nearby, I get freaked out because I'm just like, shit.
Here comes the serial killer.
Here comes the Zodiac.
I thought it was strange too that he like ordered them out of the car and then shot David Faraday like as he's getting out of the car.
Yeah.
It's almost like he regretted his decision because like, oh shit, they're gonna be like equal footing with me if they get out of the car. So he like eliminated the quote greatest threat, which would be the male, because it's the 1960s and chauvinism is alive.
It is alive. Still alive.
So he like shoots him in the head like before he can even like get on his feet because maybe that means the Zodiac is like not very physically imposing or he has a sort of like a timidness in him,
Right.
which a lot of these murders will kind of prove out that he's not very good. He's not very sure of himself.
No.
And it almost seems like he just bumbles his way through all of these and somehow doesn't get caught.
It really does.
Like that first murder doesn't feel like he had that under control.
No.
Like he orders him out of the car and then panics and shoots him, and then she starts running away and he has to shoot her 10 times in the back. Like,
yeah.
That's not a man who like had a plan and executed it well.
Why not just walk up to the car and just shoot?
Right.
You know?
He easily could have done that.
Yeah. But yeah, it seemed like he wasn't really sure what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was his first confirmed murder. So yeah, this was within the city limits of Benicia, California? Sure. Which is about 40 minutes from San Francisco. Yeah, this was December 20th, 1968. So that was, 40 minutes like northeast of San Francisco.
Okay.
Just so you get an idea
Right.
where we're at. So the next murder, this was July 4th, 1969. So a good 7 months later, almost. This is very close to where he was, like literally probably just minutes away from that previous kill. Michael Renaud Magot and Darlene Elizabeth Farron, 19 and 22. They were, just before midnight, drove into the Blue Rock Springs Park, which, 4 miles from the Lake Herman Road murder site.
Dang.
Honestly would make me a little nervous, I think, being alive in that time. I mean, maybe, I don't know how publicized that first murder was.
Right.
So maybe it's
7 months later.
Right. Yeah, it was a while later. So I feel like it's still, I mean, for me personally, it would have been in my head.
Well, right.
To not just hang out in like a parking lot in the middle of the night.
Right.
But yeah, they parked in this parking lot. They were sitting in the car. They said a second car drove into the lot, parked next to them, but then almost immediately drove away. And then about 10 minutes later, the car came back and parked behind them once again. And the driver of that car exited the vehicle, approached the passenger side of Farron's car, carrying a flashlight and a 9mm Luger. So,
here we go.
Directed the flashlight into their eyes before shooting at them. So he did just shoot into the car that time.
Right.
They were both hit. I guess several of the bullets even passed through Michael and into Darlene Farron.
Jesus.
And so the Zodiac started to walk away, but he heard Michael Magot moaning. And so came back and shot each of them twice more, and then he left. So probably about a half an hour later, the Vallejo Police Department got a phone call from a man claiming responsibility for the attack.
Right.
And also said, I killed those other kids last year or whatever.
Interesting.
So he took responsibility for both. They traced the phone call to a phone booth at a gas station only about 0.3 of a mile from Darlene Farron's home and only a few blocks from the police department.
Interesting.
So he which interestingly, I think I read that it was like 3 blocks from the police department, but it was like 30 miles from where he had killed them.
Right.
So he killed them and then just got in the car, drove basically to the police department and then called them.
And when they found the phone booth, the phone was off the hook.
Yeah.
It was minutes later. It was minutes after the phone call that they arrived because it was so close.
Yep.
Phone was off the hook and they lifted a wet palm print. Which is like wild to think that they were so close. They were
So
minutes
close.
away from the Zodiac.
It's not the first time that they will be super close to catching him.
Right.
But yeah, and they couldn't
And
identify anybody.
almost seems like it's on purpose too. Like he drove very close to the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
Far away from where he killed those people.
Yeah, you can't tell me there wasn't a phone booth closer to where he
absolutely.
killed them. He could have just called them.
And I wonder if that was
Right
him
there.
kind of like distance himself from the murder, or if that was him trying to like kind of get his own adrenaline rush of like, okay, I'm gonna like get as close as I can to the sheriff and like call and then like run away.
Taunting the police.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does a
Wow.
lot of that. So in this particular shooting, the reason we know that he, drove in and left and came back is because Michael Magot survived.
Right.
Darlene Farron did not. But yeah, which like kind of amazed me too, just because, like I said, some of the bullets went through Michael and like hit Farron, but he survived.
It's wild.
Yeah, she died at the hospital, but he lived and was able to identify, well, not identify, but describe the attacker.
Yep.
So yeah, that was confirmed kill number 2.
It's interesting. Again, he didn't do a great job.
Nope.
It almost seems like he shined the flashlight in their car to blind them as a further way of like having the upper hand. So like blind them and then start shooting so that they can't fight back or they can't like try to grab his gun or whatever.
Yeah.
And then having to come back and like shoot them again, and like even then not even killing both of them.
Yeah, still didn't kill him.
Dude's an amateur.
Yeah, he's an amateur.
And he's just like it's almost like a thrill thing. Like and then he like has to go and like, I guess it makes sense, you know, like if he had that first murder and then the second murder, like it doesn't quite do it for him, so he has to like get an additional thrill of like contacting the police.
Yeah.
And so he like, you know, it's almost like a drug addict. Like he builds up a tolerance, and he has to like go farther in order to get the same like rush.
Oh yeah, which we'll see later. Like at some point, it almost reading about it like was a little sad.
Right.
At how like far he was going to be like, come on, like give me attention, give me attention.
Right.
But yeah, so apparently calling the police was not enough, because then just a few weeks later, August 1st, 1969, is when he sent his first letters.
Yes.
So the Vallejo Times-Herald, the San Francisco Chronicle, which will be a favorite of his.
Yes.
And the San Francisco Examiner got basically identical letters, described by a psychiatrist to have been written by, quote, someone you would expect to be brooding and isolated.
Yep.
Which is
Classic.
like, all right. Took credit for both of those first killings.
Yep.
Had each letter had 1/3 of a 408 symbol cryptogram.
Supposedly containing his name.
Yes, supposedly containing his identity. And he demanded that they would be printed on each paper's front page, or he would, quote, cruise around all weekend killing lone people in the night, then move on to kill again until I end up with 12 people over the weekend. Which was an empty threat.
Yeah.
Because the Chronicle published its third on page 4 of next day's edition. They didn't give a fuck.
No.
They were just like, nope. Which is amazing, because now he's taking credit for 2 murders of 3 people.
Yeah.
And they were just like, nah. Even they printed an article alongside it quoting the police chief in Vallejo as saying, we're not satisfied that the letter was written by the murderer. So they like posted it and were like, we don't even think this is him.
Right.
And I guess the police chief requested that the writer send a second letter with more facts to prove his identity. And none of the murders that were threatened happened over the weekend.
Right.
So, again, amateur. Not that I want 12 people to have been killed.
Absolutely not.
But, like...
You got to follow up with at least something.
Follow up with something, yeah. Like, even if he had killed one more person and called in, like, he could be like, look, you didn't do it. But they didn't do it, and he was just like, okay.
Fuck.
Yeah, damn it. I really thought that would work.
Which, like, yeah, like, I'm sure that was, like, a tactic by the police. Like, oh, maybe we'll just, like, we'll kind of, like, question the authenticity of it and then run it on page 4 just as, like, a kick in the pants and, like to get him mad and, like, make a mistake, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so either he's really smart by not doing it or he's really, like, timid.
Right.
You know, because he knew, like, oh, I'm just so fucking pissed right now. I shouldn't, like, I shouldn't go kill anybody for a while because
I would think that would have been an ego blow.
Right.
Because he, like, wanted that. I mean, clearly people who do things like this want that attention. They want that, like, fame.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, they were just immediately like, no.
Fuck that. I'm sure he, like, stood in the mirror and was like, who am I?
Who am I?
Am I the Zodiac?
Am I? I'm not sure anymore. So really sad. So they did eventually, all 3 parts were published, but not immediately. So, like, not even a week later, they get the San Francisco Examiner gets another letter with the salutation, "Dear editor, this is the Zodiac speaking."
This is the Zodiac speaking.
So this was the first mention of him being the Zodiac, right?
This is him claiming his name,
Claiming his name.
So he named himself the Zodiac in the letter.
Zodiac, which is kind of a cool name.
It is a cool name, and it's an interesting like this is the Zodiac speaking.
Yeah.
Like that's a really like intense phrase. I don't know, like just it has the appropriate gravitas of like I'm talking to the Zodiac.
Exactly.
He creates a character that's way cooler than the reality. Him as a serial killer, as we've like talked about, he wasn't a great serial killer.
No.
But he was great at branding.
Yes.
That's what he branded himself very well.
He eventually has a symbol.
Right.
He's got a name. I mean, if you look at pictures of his letters,
they're like almost like artistic, like
they're intense.
You could go to a museum and see those like ciphers on the wall and be like, that's interesting.
They look like serial killer letters. It's pretty classic. This, of course, was a response to the chief's request for more details. So he did include details that had not been released, as well as a message to the police that when they cracked his code, quote, "they will have me."
Right.
So
supposedly he put his name in there somewhere.
Supposedly.
Which who knows, you know? Because he did say specifically, I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for the afterlife.
Right.
So he did say specifically that he's not going to give his name.
Yeah. So that first quote that Gray read, that was this cipher from this first letter, which was cracked the day after this second letter was received. Donald and Betty Hardin of Salinas, California, I believe they were both high school teachers. They were the ones who cracked the cryptogram. Said he was collecting slaves for the afterlife, which who doesn't?
We've all been there.
We've all been there. And yeah, he doesn't actually include a name, which we don't, I guess, really know, because there's that whole string of letters at the end.
Right.
That nobody knows what that even is yet.
I know, and I'm sure people have, like, tried to sort those letters and figure out if it, like, corresponds to something, but...
Right. It's clearly not using the same code, because I'm sure they probably tried to apply that same code to that, and it didn't... It just was gibberish. So maybe it's got its own thing, but nobody, all these years later...
I realized that string of letters has the word meth in it.
Does it really?
M-E-T-H. Somewhere around the middle.
Interesting.
Zodiac smoked meth.
He smoked meth. I wouldn't be surprised. So, okay. So that's where are we at in this timeline? That was August 1969.
Yep.
So, just over a month later.
Yep.
Lake Berryessa.
Yes. Okay, so this is arguably... This is when the Zodiac, like, kind of comes into his own, and, like, this is where a lot of the mythology starts, I think.
Yes. So, let's see. September 1969. So, as far as location, so this is, like, just directly north of these previous two killings.
Right.
About 45 miles north. So, he's just moving up. Yeah. They're having a picnic. Having a great time.
Yep.
A white man, about 5'11", 170 pounds. This part I'm confused about. They said he had combed, greasy brown hair.
Right.
But they also said that he was wearing a hood.
Right.
Does he take the hood off at some point?
Interesting.
I'm not sure. I don't know how they know what his hair looks like to the extent they know it's greasy. But, yeah, he's wearing a black executioner-style hood.
Right.
With clip-on sunglasses over the eye holes.
Which is fucking stupid.
Like a nerd.
You were almost there, man.
You were almost
the black executioner's hood is dope. Like that's a wild image.
Yeah. And, like, with, like, the, I don't know what you'd call it, like a bib?
Yeah, they describe it as a bib.
A bib. Which had his symbol on it.
Yeah, so the crosshair.
Yep.
White circle with a white cross in the middle.
Yep.
And the executioner hood, and, like, that would have been terrifying. I'm not saying that was dope as in, like, I enjoy him. I'm saying, like, from a branding perspective, that would instill terror.
Yeah.
I would be terrified to see that person.
If I was anywhere and I saw that dude coming at me, like, I could be...
With a 45, too.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, approached him with a gun. He claimed to be an escaped convict from a jail. I think they couldn't recall the name. He said it was like a 2-word name.
Yeah. No, he said he had a 2-word name. And he was either from a jail from Colorado or Montana.
Okay.
And, like, what I'm also not clear about is, like, when did this conversation happen?
I know.
So this person comes up to you wearing, like, an executioner hood and a bib, holding a 45.
Clip-on sunglasses.
And then proceeds to tell you, like, all right, so by the way, I'm an escaped convict from Mexico.
Yeah.
My name it's like 2 parts, but, like, I'm not going to tell you the parts.
I'm not going to tell you the parts.
I'm either from, like, Montana or Colorado. I don't remember.
Yeah, he doesn't remember. He killed a guard and then had stolen a car, and now he needs a new car and some money.
Right.
To go to Mexico. And so they're thinking, oh, we're just going to get robbed.
Right.
Which, like, good on them for thinking the dude in the hood was just going to rob them.
Right.
I mean, why go through all that effort just to rob somebody?
Right. And how did if he's an escaped convict, where did he get all that stuff?
I know.
You, like, stop at, like, where do you get that?
You didn't have that in prison. Yeah, you didn't stop at, like, the gas station. And there's just, like,
do you have any executioner hoods here?
Yeah. There's, like, bottled water and Spam and then, like, executioner hoods. And he's like, sweet.
Oh, this bib is cool. It's like crosshair on it.
Yeah. I'm adopting this as my symbol.
This is so bizarre.
It's so, like, and I don't even think, so at that point, I don't think he had even included that symbol in any letters yet.
No, I don't think so.
I don't know if it was in his first one. I don't think it was.
No.
So
this is where he claims it.
This is where he claims it. This is, like, his symbol.
Yeah.
But yeah, not really a robbery. I mean, I guess you could still think if you were getting tied up that maybe you're being robbed. He's tying you up so you don't, like, try to stop him.
He had pre-cut lengths of cord, right?
Yeah, plastic clothesline.
Oh, yeah.
Told Cecilia Ann Shepard to tie up Brian Calvin Hartnell. I believe the two of them were just friends, not a couple.
Just having a picnic?
Actually, no, they might have been a couple. I think the two that were shot in the parking lot were friends.
Oh, interesting.
But these two, I think, were a couple. So yeah, he had the girl tie up the guy, and then he tied her up. He checked the dude's little ties, and found that they were loose, which I'm sure the girl did on purpose,
Right.
see if he could escape. But Zodiac was like having none of that, tightened him up, and but then out comes the knife and they get stabbed.
Bunch of times.
Yeah, like 6 and 10 wounds.
Jesus.
Then he hiked 500 yards back up to Knoxville Road. He drew his symbol on their car.
Yep.
And then with a black felt tip pen, he wrote Vallejo 12/20/68, 7/4/69, September 27, 69, 6:30 by knife. So again, taking credit for those past 2 murders.
Yep.
And this one, and wanted to tell them that he killed them by knife as if they couldn't see that.
Right.
I
Like, that's a
guess.
super weird detail. Like,
I just don't understand this guy.
why did he hike? How far did he hike?
500 yards.
Okay, so it's not too bad.
Not
but
too
still,
bad.
like, he had to, like, go to their car specifically, risk leaving a bunch of trace evidence.
Yeah. And
Is he still wearing the hood at this point? Is he still wearing the bib?
I don't know.
You're just driving by and you see, like, a car on the side of the road and some guy wearing an executioner hood and a bib, like, writing on the hood of a car.
Right.
Like, that's, like, a lot of risk, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So, I just, this whole thing is baffling.
It's really baffling.
And he didn't even kill both of them.
Yeah.
They weren't even both dead at this
No,
point.
they weren't both dead. Yet again, he tries to kill 2 people,
Right,
stabbing them, and still doesn't succeed.
right. Which is, like, a very intimate way of killing them.
Yeah, because there was a guy and his son fishing nearby and heard their screams for help. And then he got the park rangers. I guess, yeah, the girl was conscious when they arrived, and she gave them, like, a detailed description.
Yeah.
They were both taken to the hospital. She lapsed into a coma and never regained consciousness and died a couple days later. But he survived and was able to talk to the press.
Yeah.
So, again, we have a second victim that's able to describe him,
Right.
which is great, although...
We also have a
doesn't really do any
third MO. Like, so he
good. Yeah, exactly.
ordered them out of the car first and then shot them in the
Yep.
first murder. And then he just goes up beside them and, like, blinds them with a flashlight and then shoots into the car.
Into the car.
And then...
Which is smarter.
Very...
It's like he was improving, and then he went real weird.
Right. And then, all of a sudden, 0 to 100 shows up wearing an executioner hood, bib, and uses a knife.
Yeah.
And, like, why did he have them tie each other up? Was it... Again, maybe he had them... Like, if he was planning on murdering them with a knife, he realized that he's not great at murdering people, so he needed them tied up so that they couldn't fight back.
Exactly.
So everything he's doing is to, like, sort of hedge his bets to make sure that, like... So he's, like, kind of smart in some ways, but then just, like, fucks up the execution. Execution.
Ha. Ew.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did fuck up the execution, though.
Yes, he did.
He did in many ways.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, that was... Is that number 4? That was number 4.
Yeah.
So now, number 5.
And so now we have a fully fledged... He has a name. He has
Yep.
a symbol.
Symbol.
He has an established contact with the police and the reporters.
He also called the police after this murder.
Yeah.
Confessed. Yeah, essentially just called, said he wanted to report a murder, no, a double murder.
Yeah.
And saying that he was the one. So yeah, once again, calls into the police just to be like, yo,
Right.
that was me. So then, October 11th, 1969, he's in the Presidio Heights neighborhood of San Francisco.
Yep.
Which, if you've ever been, it's very nice.
Is it?
It's fancy as hell.
Okay.
That's like the neighborhood I told you about when we were there, that like you look up on like Zillow, like the houses in that neighborhood, and it's like millions and millions of dollars. Like
okay.
insane houses.
Right.
It's so beautiful. But yeah, fancy neighborhood. This is 75 miles southwest of Lake Berryessa. So now we're going south down the coast. So this was also off his MO because all the previous people he killed were at the oldest, like in their very early 20s.
Yeah.
Pretty much all couples or could be perceived as couples.
Right.
A man and a woman together.
Yeah.
But this was a 29-year-old cab driver.
Right. Poor guy, just working.
I know, just working. Zodiac gets picked up. Does not get killed.
No.
Oh boy. He gets in the cab, driven by Paul Lee Stein. He's about a block west from Union Square. He wants to be taken to Presidio Heights. So, for some reason, they don't know, but Stein drove a block past the street that he requested to Cherry Street. And then the passenger shot Stein once in the head with a 9mm, took his wallet and keys, also odd.
Robbery, yeah.
And then tore away a section of his blood-stained shirt tail.
Which is weird.
Super weird.
Literally, and that's going to come up later why he did that, but like it's showing forethought that like he had trouble proving his authenticity as the murderer in those first letters that he wrote.
Now
so this is him taking a trophy, which he will then use to authenticate that he is indeed the murderer.
Yeah.
It almost seems like maybe like what if this wasn't necessarily planned? Like he was just going to go to Presidio Heights and just do something else, but then like this cab driver drove by where he was and he was just like,
fuck you.
Fucking, I have to walk an extra block because of you? Or like...
This is bullshit.
You know what I mean? Like maybe it was just like a snap decision because he seems like he's fairly impulsive.
Yeah.
So like it would make sense that this wasn't necessarily planned, which is why it doesn't fit his like victim type. It doesn't fit his MO.
Not at all.
None of it is consistent.
The robbery is random. He did not rob any of his other victims.
Right.
And it even said, I think it said that he took the wallet and keys, and I think he even took like some cash that was in the cab from like previous fares. Weird. Which just seems so random. But also, in a way, I mean, aside, the Lake Berryessa killing was the first one that happened during the daytime.
Right.
So that one was getting a little more ballsy, but this is definitely his ballsiest kill, as far as, like, he was...
relatively dense neighborhood.
Yeah, in a dense neighborhood, a wealthy neighborhood, where you have to assume that there probably was not a higher police presence, but, like, a faster police response.
Yeah.
And he killed the dude sitting right next to him.
Right.
Like, he wasn't outside of the car, he wasn't blinding him, he, I mean, must have felt confident enough in killing this guy that he did it because, you know, he had other victims that didn't die.
Right.
And so he had to hope that this guy died because he got a close-up look at him.
Right. He wiped down the car.
Yeah.
So that there wouldn't be any of his prints anywhere.
Yep.
He was seen by multiple people.
Yeah, he was seen by 3 teenagers who called the police while the crime was in progress. So I'm assuming if he shot the guy, they must have heard the shot being fired.
Right.
And maybe even saw him cleaning up.
Right.
So I'm assuming he didn't notice there were people watching him.
Which, like, if they called during the commission of the murder, he had to rob the guy and wipe down the car. Yeah. He did that pretty fucking quick.
Pretty fucking quick. So, yeah, they saw him wiping out. Maybe they didn't. I mean, maybe they heard the shot and then, like, came up as he was finishing up or something.
Right.
Seems like maybe that could have been because it says they observed the man wiping the cab down before walking away towards the Presidio. So 2 blocks from the crime scene, there's an officer responding to the call, saw a white man walking along the sidewalk and, like, about to kind of go up a stairway. And I believe this officer spoke to this man, but he did not think that he was a suspect because somehow the radio dispatcher had alerted to be on the lookout for a black suspect.
Wow.
It says that the mix-up remains unexplained, and I'm like, really?
Really? Is that unexplained?
Because that shit happens now.
Right.
And this was in a rich neighborhood, and, like, of course they thought it was just some black guy.
Of course. Yeah, rich neighborhood in a very, like, that's so cut and dry.
Literally a cop spoke to him.
Yes.
Which you could almost think, well, maybe that wasn't even him. But we'll get into later why it was him.
Right.
But, yeah, so they thought they were looking for a black guy. Because, of course,
weird.
Somebody committed a crime.
Right.
It's got to be a black guy.
I mean, we can't explain it.
There's real mysterious.
There's no way for us to know why I was looking for a black
person. The most
person.
unknowable part about this case is how could it possibly get mixed up that it was a black guy?
Right.
Not racism at all.
No.
Definitely not.
That did stick out to me when I read that. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
We have not come very far.
We have not come far. This was, 1969. I mean, we were a little more openly racist back then. But, like, were we really?
Right.
We're pretty openly racist now.
Oh, yeah.
So, but it was a little more accepted back then.
Right. More casual.
So we fucking lost the Zodiac for this person's racism, so thank you.
And he was described either as between 35 and 45 or between 25 and 30.
Yeah, the officer said 35 to 45. The teenagers said 25 to 30.
Interesting.
Which is interesting.
Maybe it was 2 different people.
Yeah. I don't know.
Interesting.
My thought was that if it was the same person, potentially the officer might have more experience, like, looking at somebody quickly and describing them than, like, teenagers would be. Because, like, if they just saw him quickly, like, cleaning up the cab and then leaving, maybe they aren't, like, quite as adept at, like,
I'm pretty bad at guessing people's ages.
Oh, yeah. I'd be terrible at that.
Yeah.
I
don't know,
think
he's like
all the time.
50, and they're like, he's 17.
Yeah. You're like, well, looked like he had a beard. Like, no, he didn't at all.
He was pre-pubescent.
Like, okay. I mean, he seemed like he was, like, Asian. Like, no. He was black. Not even close.
That would be...
Not close at all.
That would be my, like, eyewitness testimony.
Yeah, I'm, like, all the time, I'm like, I've said it before. If I had to sit down and do a police sketch of my own husband, I think I would fail.
Right.
Like, they're just, I'm picturing his face right now, and like, it's like, you know what somebody looks like,
Right.
but it's like, you see them so much.
How do you describe it?
Yeah, how do you describe it? And would I really, if somebody was like, what do his eyebrows look like? Like, do I know, just thinking in my head, what Nate's eyebrows look like? I'm not totally sure.
Right.
Not well enough to like have somebody draw them.
Right.
So I think the sketch would be terrible.
Yes.
I would love to do it. I wish I could like pay somebody to draw Nate based on my description, because it would not look anything like him.
It'd be hilarious.
And then he'd be like, "What? We've been together for 14 years."
Speaking of like that kind of sketch, the sketch of the Zodiac, that's like the one of the composite sketches. I'm not sure which witness this sketch is connected to, but it actually resembles DB Cooper's sketch in a little bit too.
I thought that too.
Same style of glasses.
Yep.
Just like white dude. I mean, he's just like a average looking white dude
Yeah,
in like
just
the 1960s.
Which is part of why I'm sure he hasn't really been caught, because he didn't he looked like any other dude
Fucking
from that time
Joe
frame.
Everyman.
Yeah. So they got the composite sketch, but that was it. Then this kind of starts like his string of kind of like obsessive letters.
Yes.
Where like at some point I'm like reading through this timeline of letters and I'm like, dude, calm down.
Right.
Like, you sound a little thirsty.
Yeah, he's hella thirsty.
So thirsty.
Well, I think this is when he transitions from being fully satisfied by just like, I don't think that murder was ever his end goal. I think like some sort of fame or notoriety
Exactly.
was his end goal, and this just seemed like, I mean, like, I think the whole murder aspect of it was attractive to him, but I think it was a means to an end in a lot of ways to sort of gain this public discourse with like a newspaper and the police department. Like, that was more his driving force.
Oh yeah, which he did succeed.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, like we said, he was a shitty serial killer, but you know, if you say Zodiac Killer nowadays,
Oh yeah, he's one of the
50
most
years
famous
later.
Zodiac, or
Yeah.
one of the most famous serial killers.
one of the most famous Zodiacs. Of all the Zodiac killers, he's like number one.
Number one, man.
Yeah, so that murder, October 11th. So October 14th, again, the Chronicle is like his favorite place. They get a letter, has a swatch of Paul Stein's shirt, the cab driver he killed. It contained a threat. This was his threat about killing school children off a school bus. He said, just shoot out the front tire and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fucked.
It's a fucking weird, and that's a weird way to say it.
Yeah. It's really bizarre. Like, and where did that come from? Like, again, like way off his MO.
Right.
Like, now I'm going to kill school kids.
Right.
I don't even know. So he threatens that. I don't even really know if it was like totally, it was like kind of a threat. It was just like, hey, I'm going to do this thing.
Right.
Which
He
is
didn't.
a totally empty threat again.
And he never did, yeah.
Never did. 6 days later, October 20th, somebody claiming to be the Zodiac called the Oakland Police Department, demanding that one of these two prominent lawyers, F. Lee Bailey or Melvin Belly, appear on this local television show, AM San Francisco. So Bailey's not available. Belly went on the show. The host, like, appealed to the viewers. They wanted to keep the phone lines open. Like, please don't call. We're waiting for the Zodiac.
Right.
Someone claiming to be the Zodiac did call several times and said his name was Sam. And then Belly agreed to meet with him in Daly City, but the guy never showed up.
Which, again, weird. Like that might not even have been the Zodiac.
Yeah, we have no idea. I'm sure the phone calls are probably the hardest to pin down, because I feel like it'd be a little harder to, like, definitively match somebody's voice.
Right.
Even based on, like, a previous couple phone calls.
Right.
Versus, like, handwriting.
Especially back then.
Yeah. So, who knows? And weird. November 8th, they get another card with another cryptogram, 340 character cryptogram, never been decoded.
Yep.
We have no idea what the hell that was.
Right.
Who knows what the fuck he said. November 9th, 7-page letter stating that 2 policemen stopped and spoke with him right after he shot Paul Stein.
Mm-hmm.
So we're confirmed there. They published some of the excerpts a few days later, including his claim, and I guess it was that same day that officer wrote a memo explaining what had happened, which I'm assuming he was like, dude, I thought I was looking for a black guy.
Right.
Sorry.
Come on, like, who hasn't made that mistake, right?
I just figured.
Yeah.
I didn't even need to hear it. I just assumed it was a black guy.
Yeah.
So, December 20th, this is like exactly a year after the murders of Faraday and Jensen, he mailed a letter to Belly, to that lawyer, including another swatch of Stein's shirt. Like, why, dude?
Right.
But that letter said that he wanted Belly to help him, quote, "Please help me. I cannot remain in control for much longer."
Interesting.
So he's calling out for help.
Yeah, which is weird. Like,
Super weird.
is he trying to get caught?
I don't know.
But, like, he could just turn himself in.
He could just turn himself in. Seems like he wants to get caught. He at least wants the attention.
Right.
He likes being in the newspaper. He's writing letters all the time. So that's December. So now we move on to March 1970.
Yeah.
This is not a confirmed Zodiac encounter.
Right.
Though I believe he does later take credit for it.
Yeah. This is also another example of
Oh my god.
poor serial killing.
Poor serial killing and poor judgment on the victim's part.
Oh,
I don't mean to victim blame, and it was 1970. I don't know what time things were like back then.
Right.
In this area, there's
a lot of red flags.
There's a lot of red flags. Yeah. So picture this. Highway 132.
Yep.
Near I-580.
Got
You're
it.
right? You're right there.
I'm right there.
Area west of Modesto.
Okay.
So let's see. March 22nd, 1970. So this is, again, we're still kind of moving southeast.
Okay.
From San Francisco. This is a little bit over. This woman, Kathleen Johns, she's driving to visit her mom.
Mm-hmm.
She's pregnant, 7 months pregnant, and has her 10-month-old daughter in the car.
Jesus.
Yeah. This car comes up behind her, starts honking its horn and flashing its headlights, freaking out. Again, I don't know what I'd think in that moment.
Right.
But she pulls over the car.
I would drive so much faster.
So much faster.
I would just speed.
I would just go to somewhere. I mean, I at least would have waited, I think, until I was somewhere in public.
A gas station or something?
Yeah, something, like a diner, anything. Especially pregnant and with a baby.
Right.
There's just no way.
Yeah.
Even just one of those things, I would have been like, no.
Right.
Again, I'm not trying to blame this woman. I don't feel quite as bad because she doesn't die.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he tells her, "Oh, you're right. Rear wheel. Your right rear wheel is wobbling. I can fix it for you." And she's like,
"What a nice guy.
Awesome. Yeah, he's going to tighten the lug nuts. Great." So he does his thing. She's just like, "What a nice guy."
Right.
He pulls out ahead of her. She goes to drive off, and her wheel immediately comes off.
Weird.
Man,
it's almost as if somebody loosened the lug nuts.
Yeah, it's almost like they did that.
Wow.
So he comes back, and he's like, "Oh, man, I'll just take you to a gas station. Now you have to get in my car because your fucking wheel is off the car."
Right.
So she gets in the car with her daughter, and they're driving around for an hour and a half. He's passing all kinds of gas stations.
Hour and a half.
Yeah, it's a long ass time.
They said he was driving back and forth on country roads.
Yeah, exactly. He's just back and forth, back roads. She's asking him why he's not stopping. He would just change the subject. I'm sure in her mind she's losing her shit.
Oh yeah.
This is fucking it. He finally stops at an intersection. She jumps out and hides in a field with her daughter. He searches for them with a flashlight, but can't find her. And so then he leaves and she hitches a ride to the police station.
What a bad serial killer.
So bad.
You didn't lock the doors or...
I have to wonder, this one makes me wonder if this was, again, very different from his MO.
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't.
I don't know. But I don't know if maybe he hadn't killed anybody that was, a little kid, a baby.
Right.
He hadn't killed a pregnant woman. I mean, as far as we know.
Right.
So maybe he was having some doubts, building up some courage to do this.
Interesting.
But I mean, he had her right there. I mean, he could have, but I mean.
Right. And driving around for an hour and a half, you had plenty of opportunity to make your move.
Yeah. And he didn't. So you have to think, I don't know what else his goal would have been. He clearly, it's not like he was driving her somewhere. It's not like he's going somewhere for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
He's just going back and forth. So he's clearly plotting, what the hell am I going to do?
Right. You're trying to get up the nerve to do it. It's super weird.
Yeah. So thankfully she gets away. She gave her statement and she noticed the composite sketch of Paul Stine's killer and recognized him as the same guy. So again, I mean, it's pinned to him for that reason, but there's no telling in that moment. I mean, we have to assume she got a good look at him. She's in the car with him for a long time.
Eyewitness testimony is notoriously bad, though.
Yes. And I mean, I feel like it could be, again, that composite does not look like a very specific person.
No,
it just looks like a dude.
A dude, the most prominent features, the glasses.
Yeah.
Which are very easily interchangeable.
Exactly. So we don't know for sure it was him, but they found her car. It had been gutted and torched. And so...
It just seems unnecessary.
The whole thing's fucking weird.
Yeah.
The only connection I could think is that he tried to put those other kids in that shed and burn it down, but that one's not confirmed to him either.
Right.
So that's the only similarity, really.
And
But
why did he have to? It's not like his DNA was anywhere in the car.
no, yeah, and if it was, they don't fucking know.
Right.
So
It's weird.
yeah, that one was fucking weird, but luckiest chick ever.
Yeah.
So yeah, he continues to keep communicating with the authorities for like the rest of 1970.
Yep.
Letters and greeting cards, which I thought was nice.
Right.
Aw.
Greetings.
He like went to the store and was like, I gotta pick out some of these cards.
One of the ones that I thought was interesting was there was one of the letters was the phrase like my name is and then a 13-letter cryptogram.
Yep.
So you could assume that his name is 13 letters.
Yep.
There's a lot that you can do with 13 letters,
Yeah,
but
there's a whole lot you can do.
it does actually like make some of the people who it might have been, and when we get to that part of it, there's some interesting like, oh, actually
Yeah. Oh, hey there.
helps it fit.
Yeah, there's a cool connection that I like a little later on too that will come up.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, he said in that same letter he was not responsible for the recent bombing of a police station in San Francisco, but he said, quote, there is more glory to killing a cop than a... This was spelled C-I-D. I don't know if that meant kid. Sid? I don't
Interesting.
know. Because a cop can shoot back.
Yeah.
And then he had a diagram of a bomb that this is, again, back to the school bus thing.
Yeah.
But now he's not shooting the kids. He's going to bomb the bus. He's all over the place.
Right.
And then he wrote his symbol equals 10, SFPD equals 0. So he starts to add these little tallies at the bottom of his letters.
Yeah.
So now his claim is that he's killed 10 people.
Right.
At this point, we only know that he's killed 5 people.
Yes.
So we're kind of like, all right.
Right. Either there's ones that we don't know about, which is very
Totally
well
possible.
possible.
Yeah.
And it is weird that he kind of like starts hinting at like the whole bomb angle, because I wonder if maybe like the national news attention that when was the Unabomber?
That's a good question.
Like I wonder if there was something in like the national consciousness that bombing seemed like a more fame-worthy crime than serial killing. So
Right.
maybe he was going to try to transition to become a bomber so that he could have
There are theories that they are one and the same.
a greater audience. Yes, I didn't hear
Yes.
about that.
Yep. I actually didn't look into the connections, but that is one of the theories. That
Interesting.
Ted Kaczynski is the Zodiac.
I don't know if I buy that though.
I'm not sure. I should have gotten more details about that.
Looking into it, well, we'll get into that later. I know a decent amount about Ted Kaczynski, and I don't think that their profiles of the Zodiac and Ted Kaczynski fit. But we'll get into that later.
The Unabomber, I think, might have been in the 70s. Maybe. I'm not sure. So it might have been after
the 80s.
the known. I don't know. It's definitely, I feel like it's definitely after this,
Yeah,
but not too long after.
right. So it wasn't like the 90s.
Yeah. So he starts his tally.
Yeah.
About a week later, another greeting card to the Chronicle. I hope you enjoy yourselves when I have my blast. All in
Yes.
caps. I'm a little disappointed that he didn't say while I have a blast.
Right.
What the hell, man?
He's like almost got a good one-liner, but
I
like
know.
fucks it up.
Have my blast? Puts his little symbol. On the back, he threatens to use the bus bomb soon unless the newspaper published the full details that he wrote. And he also said he wanted to see some people wearing, quote, some nice Zodiac buttons. He literally wants people to wear his brand around.
He's literally branding himself.
Yeah,
He
he
is-
wants people to wear this button.
He's like an influencer on Instagram.
And he's not even offering the buttons.
Right.
He didn't even mail them the
He's
buttons.
like, someone's got to fucking make some Zodiac
Make some buttons. Like I don't know, he's expecting the newspaper to print up some buttons.
Yeah,
and
it's super bizarre.
Send them out, like include them with the newspaper that people get. I don't even know.
Right. I mean,
But
he's
he
clearly
wants attention.
self-centered, but like it's just like in a weird way. Like
It's so bizarre.
he seems like super desperate.
Yes, exactly.
He's trying to make himself into a cooler serial killer than he is.
Yeah, he's not that cool. Almost 2 months later, he sends a letter. He's upset that he didn't see people wearing the buttons. I'm sorry.
He's not mad. He's disappointed.
He's disappointed. He wrote, quote, I shot a man sitting in a parked car with a .38, which is potentially referencing there was a Sergeant Richard Raditic a week earlier that was sitting in a cop car, writing a parking ticket, and was shot with a .38 caliber pistol in the head.
Interesting.
And he died. So San Francisco Police Department denies that this was the Zodiac, but to me, I'm kind of like, why couldn't it have been him?
Right.
Like, what evidence do you have? Like, what guarantee is it that it wasn't him?
Right.
I mean, him taking credit isn't a definitive either, but I don't know how they can say, like, no.
Right.
That you don't have shit from any other case, so...
No. And all of the Zodiac's murders are super sporadic, and
Yeah.
like shooting into a parked car would not be out of the realm of his MO.
And he had already just said like 2 months before that there was more glory to killing a cop.
Right.
And then in June, he potentially kills a cop. Like,
makes sense.
That makes sense. And so in this letter, he includes a roadmap of the San Francisco Bay Area.
Mm-hmm.
There's Mount Diablo
Ooh.
on the map. He drew his cross circle symbol, and on the top, he placed a 0, a 3, a 6, and a 9. And then he had instructions that the 0 was, quote, to be set to Mag-N.
Magnetic North.
Magnetic North. There you go. And then that also included a cipher that was never been solved again, that he claimed would, in conjunction with the code, lead to the location of a bomb that he had buried and set off to go off in the fall. So more bombs. The cipher was never decoded. The bomb was never located. And then he signed it with his little symbol equals 12, SFPD equals 0. So now he's tacked on 2 more murders.
Right.
Even though the only one he mentioned was that cop.
Right.
So there's potentially another mystery murder.
And this whole bomb angle does not seem legit to me. Like, it seems like... So he really wants people to solve those ciphers.
Yeah.
And it must, like, really piss him off that they've only solved one.
Only solved one.
Like,
no other ciphers.
He wants to be this, like, grand, like, opponent and, like, have it be, like, a chess game. Like, it's a movie and, like, you, like, work tirelessly to solve this. And then you solve the cryptogram and then you go find something, but it's not what you were expecting. Like, he's, like, trying to make this into, like, the plot of a movie. And, like, the police department's just like, I mean, we'll try, but, like,
no guarantees.
No guarantees. And, like, here we are 40 years later.
Never been solved.
So that must, like, really piss him off.
Now I want to solve these ciphers.
Do it.
Damn it. Right. Okay, so that's June 26th. So a month later, he took credit for the abduction of the woman with the baby.
Yep.
And then a couple days later, he paraphrases a song from The Mikado, a 2-act comic opera that apparently is one of the most frequently played musical theater pieces in history.
Sure.
I probably have to hear it, I guess. He kind of added his own lyrics about making a, quote, little list of the ways he planned to torture his slaves in paradise, spelled with a C. This was signed with a very large, exaggerated symbol. And then now it said symbol equals 13, SFPD equals 0. So we're yet another murder. And then he included a note on the bottom saying, P.S. The Mount Diablo code concerns radians plus number of inches along the radians. Which, okay.
Right.
Like 11 years later, this Zodiac researcher, Gareth Penn, was apparently like a true crime author that was known for being among the first non-journalists to write about the Zodiac Killer case. So he did a lot of Zodiac research, led to the discovery that a radian angle when placed over the map per the Zodiac's instructions pointed to the locations of 2 of the Zodiac attacks.
Interesting.
So there was some truth to that.
Right.
They just didn't figure it out for a while.
Right.
Oops. Which I'm pretty sure that was his previous attacks. It wasn't like,
right.
Which like you think in that kind of case, like you'd think that it would be cooler for him to like for that to show to future. Yeah, body is something, but like just to be like, yeah, that's where I've already killed people is like, okay, cool.
And I wonder if he was thinking that it was like maybe there's some other, like if you crack one of those cryptograms, maybe it'll give you more instructions like that. And so then you'd be able to know like, okay, this is going to tell me where other murders have taken place or something.
But
so maybe like that's what he was expecting, but we haven't cracked it. So it's like, he's just like, come on guys.
Yeah. We don't know shit.
He like gave us that hint like,
yeah,
dude, it means radians.
He's trying.
Come on.
That like again was another sign that like he sent that letter and then like later on he's like, dude,
right,
like nobody's figured it out yet. Like here's a hint.
Kind of sad.
It's kind of sad, and then still nobody figured it out at the time. It wasn't until way later.
11 years later.
So, yeah, October 7th, they receive a 3x5-inch card signed by the Zodiac with a small cross reportedly drawn with blood, with 13 holes punched across the card.
Which I wonder if the 13 holes are significant, like the placement of the holes.
That might have been, well, maybe matched up to the number of victims at that point because his previous letter said 13.
Right.
So maybe that was just whatever. 20 days later, Chronicle reporter Paul Avery, this one's creepy, got a Halloween card signed with the letter Z and the Zodiac symbol. Handwritten was the note, "Peekaboo, you are doomed."
Yes.
Ugh.
That's fucked.
Fucked up. This was taken seriously, got a front page story, and then the reporter, Paul Avery, also received an anonymous letter alerting him to these similarities between the Zodiac and this unsolved murder of Sherry Jo Bates, which was in 1966. So he kind of starts looking into that. He reported his findings. Moving back in time, October 30th, 1966, 18-year-old Sherry Jo Bates, student of Riverside Community College, was hanging out at the library on campus till it closed at 9. Neighbors apparently heard a scream around 10:30. Guess nobody checked it out.
Right.
And then she was found dead the next morning, short distance from the library, between 2 abandoned houses, stabbed like crazy, like almost decapitated.
Jesus.
The wires in her Volkswagen's distributor cap had been pulled out. Yeah, she was beaten and stabbed to death. They found a man's Timex watch with a torn wristband. The watch had stopped at 12:24 a.m., oddly, but the police believe that the murder occurred before that.
Interesting.
So, again, quite different. Like, doesn't seem like he didn't tie her up.
Right.
Didn't do anything like that. This was before his first confirmed murder, but potentially after that first suspected murder.
Right.
The kids that were senior ditch day.
Yeah.
Which even that, he shot them, so who fucking knows?
So Riverside Community College was where that poem was found carved on that desk.
Yes. So a month later, people get typewritten letters. The police, one of the newspapers, titled The Confession.
Yes.
Which this part is consistent with Zodiac.
Definitely.
Claimed responsibility, details of the crime, warned that Bates, quote, is not the first and she will not be the last. And, creepier, Miss Bates was stupid. She went to the slaughter like a lamb.
Jesus.
It's like a little creepier than his usual stuff, I think.
It is.
And then, so in December, they found a poem.
So, in one of the desks at the Riverside Community College Public Library.
Yep, where she had been that night.
They found a weird poem carved into the desk. Has not been 100% confirmed as the Zodiac.
Right.
But it definitely fits his weird, like, wanting to sort of, like, memorialize a murder with words, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna read you the poem, okay?
Yes.
So this was carved in the desk. It's all just kind of, like, laid out like a poem, like single words on each line or 2 words on each line.
Mm-hmm.
So it's titled "Sick of Living / Unwilling to Die," which sounds like a hardcore song.
Yeah.
So this is the poem, okay? Cut, clean, if red, clean, blood spurting, dripping, spilling all over her new dress. Oh well, it was red anyways. Life draining into an uncertain death. She won't die. This time, someone'll find her. Just wait till next time.
Damn.
And it's signed RH.
RH. Lowercase RH.
Lowercase RH.
Yeah. Super creepy.
Super creepy.
Yeah, they said, so Sherwood Morrill, which was California's top, like, handwriting expert at the time, said that he thought that it was written by the Zodiac. The handwriting looked similar, which must be hard, like, comparing
carving,
to writing. But he thought it was similar. They thought it was similarly worded. Again, we've only given, like, quotes from some of these letters. Like, a lot of these letters that we're mentioning were a lot longer than what we're saying.
Right.
So I think they kind of had a good idea at that point of all the letters he had sent of kind of how he talked.
Yeah, not only, like, his handwriting style or, like, but, like, his way of speaking and his way of, like, forming thoughts and sentences and even, like, his sense of humor and the fact that he was kind of, like, sarcastic in a lot of ways.
Well, and it matched up kind of with his, she's the first, but she will not be the last. Or she's not the first, but she'll not be the last. Kind of at the end there, like, wait till next time or whatever.
Right.
Which is creepy because he's saying, like, she will be found, but wait until next time.
Right.
Like, they won't be found. Which matches up with the idea that he's keeping track of how many people he's killed, but we don't have the same numbers on our end. So we have no idea.
It's interesting.
And again, if his MO was all over the place, it's not even like you can just look into, like, murders of young, like, teenagers or early, like, young adults or whatever. It's like, could be anybody.
Any murder,
really. And who knows? He could stray from that. He could be killing homeless people. We have no idea.
Right. And I tend to believe that his numbers are accurate too, because if he was making that up, I feel like they'd be a whole lot more inflated.
Exactly.
Like, he's at 13 murders. Like, he could be like, fucking 107.
Yeah.
398 murders.
Exactly.
It's like,
it's kind of part of his
13.
mystery.
Right.
Is that he's telling you, like, yeah, I've killed more people, but you don't know who they are.
Right.
So, yeah. And again, they're looking into this case later. I mean, obviously this case was known and investigated, but it wasn't connected to him until this reporter kind of got this heads up.
Yeah.
And so April 30th, 6 months after she was murdered, her father and one of the local papers and the police all got identical letters that said along the lines of Bates had to die, there will be more. And then a scribble at the bottom with the letter Z, or what looked like the letter Z.
Yeah.
So again, that was part of what connected it, is like, oh, Zodiac does that.
Right.
So shortly after, shortly after where we had previously left off, September 6, 1970, a woman disappears. Go into this in a little bit, but that's thought to be him as well. So yeah, he did make mention to the Bates murder in March 71, after Paul Avery put out an article linking the Zodiac to this Bates murder. He mailed a letter to the Los Angeles Times. So that's where Riverside is. It's sort of like a suburb of Los Angeles.
Okay.
He credited the police instead of Avery for discovering his, quote, Riverside activity, but they are only finding the easy ones. There are a hell of a lot more down there.
Interesting.
So that could be part of it too. If you, again, looking at a map and knowing California, San Francisco is a ways away from Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah.
Like hours away. So if they're really looking in the San Francisco Bay Area
right.
for potential murders to connect him to, and he's also killing people down in Los Angeles or has killed people,
right.
There's a lot of murders that happen in Los Angeles and in the nearby areas. You're not necessarily combing through every single one of those
right.
over a several year span.
It seems like his San Francisco is like his comfort zone, where he that's where he tried out the whole bib and executioner hood thing.
Yeah.
It seems where he does like the more experimentation, whereas maybe LA he could be like more anonymous there or something, or he didn't feel as comfortable. I feel like San Francisco is like he probably lived there or had some connection to San Francisco.
Yeah, because San Francisco is still a big city, but not as big as Los Angeles.
Right.
So you can, and again, just there's in general more crime in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of opens up a whole new world of like, oh shit. So yeah, they still maintained that Bates murder was not him, but it seems to be linked in several ways. So maybe a week later, he writes a postcard to the Chronicle addressed to Paul Averly, like misspelled the dude's name that he was like communicating with.
Maybe it was on purpose.
Maybe it was
disrespect.
Just to be like, can't even remember your name.
Right.
Believed to be from the Zodiac, claimed responsibility for the disappearance of Donna Lass, which was in September the previous year. There was kind of a weird collage that he sent from advertisements and magazines. It featured a scene from an advertisement for Forest Pines condominiums, and it had the text Sierra Club, sought victim 12, peek through the pines, past Lake Tahoe areas, and around in the snow.
Yeah.
It had his symbol, like he put it in like the return address section, which is like a thing that he did. So Donna Lass was a nurse at this like Sahara Tahoe hotel and casino, which is like,
sure.
I was like, okay. So she worked until like 2 a.m. on September 6th. Later that day, her employer and her landlord both received calls from a man saying that she had a family emergency and had to leave town.
Interesting.
Which was not correct. None of her family had called. And she was never found. So they found what appeared to be a gravesite, which again, like, there are certain things that later on I'm like, why did I not get more detail about this?
Like, how did it appear to be a gravesite?
I have no idea. This was in Northern California, which I have on the map is like it's not right where she disappeared, but it's close by.
Yeah.
But they excavated and all they found was a pair of sunglasses.
Which is weird.
So this was a weird one for him again, because he took credit for it, but this was the only murder thus far that they couldn't find anything.
Right.
It didn't seem like he wanted them to find anything.
Right.
He gave some clues there, but not really.
Right.
So again, I don't know how they found this gravesite.
Did he like bury her there and then like dig her back up and move her or something?
I have no idea.
Like, that's even weirder.
This one is bizarre. So then he goes silent, at least in California.
Yes.
For 3 years.
3 whole years.
But there's a letter received in 1973. So we left off in March 71.
Yeah.
So it's still a solid 2 years. At 73, Albany, New York, I think the police station, received an envelope with his symbol at the return address. And the letter read, "You are wrong. I am not dead or in the hospital. I am alive and well, and I'm going to start killing again. Below is the name and location of my next victim, but you had better hurry because I'm going to kill her August 10th at 5 p.m. when the shift change. Albany is a nice town." So, hinting that he's there visiting.
Interesting.
Or living there. Who knows?
Right.
There's 3 rows of symbols. The FBI Bureau Cryptanalysts, which is cool,
Right.
deciphered it to read... So the first part they had redacted. I don't know why.
Maybe it was personal information.
It could have been, it could have been a name, I guess. Albany Medical Center, this is only the beginning. But they couldn't find any murders that matched. So he kind of like sent this letter being like, I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
This is the name, and nothing happened.
Again.
Again.
False promises.
Yeah. So finally the Chronicle gets another letter from him, January 74. He praised The Exorcist as the best satirical comedy I've ever seen.
Yes, which is weird. That's a weird. That letter has a weird tone to it.
Yeah.
It's like
really weird.
Laughy and jokey, but like kind of like sinister and brooding at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. He had another snippet of a verse from the Mikado and an unusual symbol at the bottom that was not his usual symbol. And then he concluded with a new score, me equals 37, SFPD equals 0. So now he's jumped from, I think his last tally was 13.
Yes.
To now, 3 years later, at 37.
I mean, it's conceivable that he was murdering people that whole way. Like, if he's going from San Francisco to Albany, New York, he drove across the whole United States.
Yeah.
Could have been murdering people in every town along the way. And
exactly.
They were never linked together because they're just, like, back then they didn't have the same databases.
Right.
Like, we still have problems nowadays of, like, organizations not talking to each other and not being able to track murders that happen in different parts of the country because of, like, police stations not wanting to, like, cooperate.
Yeah.
So, especially back then, like, he could have easily had, you know, those extra 12. 24.
Yeah.
Damn. Like, 24 people.
So many people.
In 3 years.
Well, yeah. And again, like, if his MOs are very inconsistent, it's not even like you're seeing the exact same thing every time and you're like, hey, wait a second.
Right.
Like, if he's shooting people, stabbing people in cabs of different ages, I mean, who knows?
Right.
So yeah, as far as he claims, 37. And that was pretty much it. He's a suspect in, there's like some hitchhiker murders, these 7 unsolved homicides in 72 and 73 in like Santa Rosa. But that's just theorized.
Wild speculation.
Yeah. But that's pretty much it. And then that's kind of where it ends. And
there's a few kind of like letters here and there.
Yeah.
After that may or may not have been attributed to him. They're just kind of like weird, like letters to the editor that are tonally, like there's just something off about them.
Yeah.
And if you read through some of them, like they're kind of like maybe, or it could just be like you're reading too far into somebody who just like sent a letter.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because none of those mention any murders. They're not confessing anything. They're just like, yeah, but they do have his same weird sense of humor.
Yeah.
Which it would make sense if this last letter, he's kind of like joking about The Exorcist.
Right.
He kind of like goes into this just weird
transitions, yeah.
Yeah, these like dark jokes.
Super weird.
And then yeah, he's just gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So suspects.
Yes.
Yes.
Arguably the most like logical suspect is this guy Arthur Lee Allen.
Yep.
He was sort of thought to be he was definitely like investigated. They searched his house. They recovered things from his house, including after he died in the 90s. They like searched his house. Couldn't find any information about what they found.
20 years long.
Yeah.
Worth of like interviews and investigations. Yeah, I didn't really see anything that aside from they found the same typewriter.
Yes.
Brand.
He also had a Zodiac brand wristwatch.
Yes. Which is like, all right, okay. Maybe a stretch.
One of his friends said that he spoke of wanting to kill people.
Yep.
He wanted to use the name the Zodiac.
Yep.
And he talked about making a flashlight gun or like attaching a flashlight to a gun.
Yeah. Which is suspicious.
Those are red flags.
That's, that's a hard one because it's like the friend said that.
And this
Did he say it?
68.
Yeah.
That he said that the friend said it.
Yep.
Or the friend said that the Zodiac, that Arthur Lee Allen said it.
Whoa. Damn.
Yeah.
It's okay. He's dead. He's not going to hear you say that.
Exactly. He was also a convicted pedophile.
He was. He was fired from his job as an elementary school teacher in March 1969 after allegations of sexual misconduct with students. And later on, 1974, he was arrested for lewd sex acts upon a 12-year-old boy.
So he was arrested and put in jail for 2 years in 1974.
Yep.
The same year that the Zodiac letter stopped.
Yep.
So it's
very interesting.
Possible that maybe he served 2 years and then got out and...
Yeah, I'd be curious because like the last confirmed letter was in January. So yeah, that easily...
He could have gone to jail and that could have been what stopped him.
Which is interesting that he didn't like pick it up after that because he only went to prison for 2 years.
Right. Maybe
so it's not
he
like
figured,
he was there forever.
They were watching him. You know what I mean? Like he probably had to register as a sex offender.
Yeah.
So like he probably figured there was more increased
risky.
scrutiny.
Yep.
So maybe he took trips and like killed people along the way.
Yeah.
And then like tried to get back into it, but like he was way over across the country, which is why he would kind of start up over there again, but like didn't actually kill anybody.
Yeah.
Like maybe he did kill people, but they were never found.
Right.
Because he wanted to fly under the radar and realized it was too risky.
Yeah. Who knows?
Another interesting sort of like piece to this is so his name is Arthur Lee Allen. If he went by Art, which is conceivable. It's 13 letters. Art Lee Allen.
Okay.
Lee like Leigh. It's exactly 13 letters.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So
Art Lee Allen.
That one cryptogram, it said my name is and then a 13-letter cryptogram.
Art Lee Allen.
Yep.
There he is. Yeah, he some other evidence. He had been in the vicinity of the Lake Berryessa attack in 1969.
Yeah.
He said in an interview once that his favorite short story was The Most Dangerous Game.
Which he referenced.
Referenced in that letter. He was picked out in a photo lineup many years after the attacks by one of the survivors.
Interesting.
Which I think the many years after part is crucial.
Yes.
Because it's like, well, the typewriter thing, I'm like, he had lived in Vallejo, just minutes away from where one of the killings took place.
Right. One of the first confirmed Zodiac.
Yeah.
Which it's always the first murder is always significant because usually a serial killer kills somebody close to them.
Right.
So it's conceivable that if he lived close to that first murder, that there's something significant about like maybe he knew that the couple or one piece of the couple. Yeah,
it said it was only a few minutes away from both where the murder took place and where one of the victims lived.
Right.
He apparently, after an interview with a reporter, wrote her a letter containing a handwritten Z identical to the one on the Riverside letter.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and retired police handwriting expert Lloyd Cunningham, though, who worked the Zodiac case forever, said that Arthur Lee Allen's handwriting didn't even come close.
But handwriting analysis is notoriously not...
True.
It's like nowadays we don't look at handwriting analysis the same way that we used to.
No.
It's not seen as an exact science. It's not like a fingerprint.
Exactly.
You can alter your handwriting, and even if you're in different states of mind, your handwriting is different.
That's true.
So that's not necessarily... That doesn't rule him out.
No. So he is probably the most plausible suspect.
If I had to put my money on someone.
Yeah. There's another one. So this one is interesting.
Yeah.
2009, a former lawyer, Robert Tarbox, said that in the early 70s, he had a merchant mariner come into his office and confess.
It's mariner, but merchant mariner.
Okay, mariner. Shit. Didn't even realize that I said that. Damn it. I was like on a roll there, too.
That's good.
Sounding all cool. A mariner.
Okay. Merchant mariner.
Merchant mariner. So he confessed.
Yes.
Came into the lawyer's office. It's a merchant mariner. He wouldn't release his name. So the lawyer knew this guy's name, but he wouldn't release it.
Right.
But said that this guy described his crimes briefly but persuasively enough to convince him. So he was like set. I guess the guy who confessed said that he was trying to stop himself from his, quote, opportunistic murder spree. But he never came back to see the lawyer. So this lawyer took out a full-page ad in the Vallejo Times-Herald because he wanted to clear the name of Arthur Lee Allen. He was convinced enough that this guy was guilty that he was like, this poor guy.
Let's clear the name of this convicted pedophile.
Yeah, like this guy's not innocent.
I don't feel bad.
Don't really feel that bad. So that was another pretend. I mean, there's not really anything to that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, okay.
I could conceivably see the Zodiac being like working class, like if he was like a merchant mariner.
A mariner, you mean?
Mariner, excuse me.
Two totally different jobs.
Right. Absolutely. if he's like, working on ships, he's maybe not the most articulate,
Right.
or maybe he like doesn't value like intellectual knowledge as much as someone else.
Yeah.
So that would kind of explain a lot of his typos.
Yep.
And maybe he was like his love of cryptograms was different from his love of grammar.
Right. Yeah.
And spelling.
A little bit.
So I can see it.
Yeah, sure. Retired police detective Steve Hodel, who has a book, The Black Dahlia Avenger, he is convinced that his father, George Hodel, was not only the Black Dahlia killer, but also the Zodiac. Based on the police sketch and some other stuff. Again, I didn't get into too many details.
Yeah. It sounds like he has a pretty strong case for his dad being the Black Dahlia murderer.
Yes.
Like that, like somebody even said that had the father been alive at this time, they probably would have charged him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was not, it seemed a lot flimsier that he was the Zodiac. It was just kind of like, fuck, maybe my dad was like every major serial killer.
Like, what serial killers existed while he was alive? He was all of them.
He was all of them. Like,
this killer was like doing stuff when your dad was 10. He's like, still. That was him.
Right.
I know it was him. Yeah, it seems like a lot. I mean, we haven't done a Black Dahlia episode yet, so I don't know.
We should. She was originally from Portland, Maine.
Yeah, she's on the list, I think. She's definitely on our list.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So he thinks that his dad did it. So, okay. So there's another dude, Louis Joseph Myers. In February 2014, it was reported that he had confessed to a friend in 2001 that he was the Zodiac. He learned that he was dying from cirrhosis of the liver, so he confesses to his friend. He died a year later, and he told his friend, when I die, go to the police. So his friend did. The police kind of weren't really taking him seriously at first. So some of the connections, this Louis Joseph Myers went to the same high school as David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen, worked in the same restaurant as Darlene Ferrin. He had access to the same sort of military boot that was found in the Lake Berryessa crime scene, which that's flimsy, I think.
Had access to a boot.
Yeah, I didn't really know what that, did he own them, or did he just...
I technically have access to those boots as well.
I have access to any boots. And then during the 71 to 73 period, when they weren't getting any letters, he was stationed overseas. So he maybe couldn't do that. So...
It would make sense.
He said he targeted couples because he had a bad breakup. Which is
that seems flimsy.
Yeah, so that one...
I am
know.
always wary of deathbed confessions.
Yeah.
Because that happened a lot with the D.B. Cooper case.
Yeah.
People saying, I was D.B. Cooper. And I can't help but think that it's just somebody trying to attach some sort of, meaning to their death.
You'd think he would have had some more evidence.
Right.
Of some kind, besides just oh, yeah. And if we're to believe even the lower estimate of how old he was, 25 to 30 or whatever it was.
Right.
25 to 35. I was confused by the going to the same high school as these people, because I'm he wasn't at their high school at the same age as them. He maybe just went to the same high school that they also went to later.
Right.
But the killer was definitely older than these people.
Oh, yeah.
By at least a few years. Maybe not much, but
right.
At least a good 7, 8, 10 years.
It seems to me he probably had these weird connections and figured out all those connections and was oh shit, maybe got fixated on it.
Which how many people in that area could have gone to the same high school and even worked at the same restaurant? If these are smaller towns in California, that's not too far off that oh, Jesus.
Could just be a coincidence.
So, yeah. This one's interesting. A man who committed suicide in Ohio in 2002. They presumably found him and then trying to look for his family, but they can't find any of his family because they realized that he had stolen the identity of an 8-year-old boy who died in 45. So they're thinking wow, he went to such great lengths to hide his identity. He must be a fugitive of some kind.
Right.
They analyzed his DNA, and it wasn't until March 2018 that they figured out who this guy even was.
Right.
And identified him as Robert Ivan Nichols. I thought was only, and this is a very weak connection. He resembled the police sketches and lived in California. So again, he looked like a dude and lived in California, which millions of people do.
Right.
But my one weak connection was that poem was signed R.H., lowercase h, that easily could have been mistaken for N.
And R.N.
So Robert Nichols.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
So that's my weak-ass connection.
That's something.
Yeah.
I also read that he could have been a Nazi war criminal.
Yeah, there were a whole lot of theories about what he could have been. And probably more likely that he was a war criminal than the Zodiac, but...
Interesting.
I was
the
initials, hey, RN.
It's not bad.
Yeah, I know. I'm a lowercase h carved into a desk.
That would be a Hail Mary, but it's not immediately able to be ruled out.
No. So that was interesting. And that was pretty much all the, like, big suspects that I found, besides Ted Cruz.
I mean, it's definitely Ted
Who was
Cruz.
born in 1970, so...
It's
but,
not even possible.
oh, and I saw a tweet that Ted Cruz supposedly made, and I, like, on one hand, I hope that he did it, and on the other hand, I don't want him to be this cool, because I kind of hate him.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, like, on Halloween, he posted some tweet that was, like, Happy Halloween, and it was a fucking Zodiac, like, cipher.
Oh, shit.
I really, like... I know he had... I, like, had seen, like, an interview or two that I only watched because I knew he, like, referenced the Zodiac thing, because that was just a whole thing for a while that, like, Ted Cruz is Zodiac Killer. Yeah. It's like, Ted Cruz's Google search, like, how to get blood out of khaki pants. But I don't know if a, like, potential presidential candidate would make a joke on his Twitter that he's a serial killer.
I don't think
Even
so.
though, like, again, it's he's obviously not, because he didn't commit those crimes when he was
physically
in the womb.
could not have done it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but I don't know. I was like, damn it, that makes me like him for a second.
Right.
Because that's kind of funny. So yeah.
Did you see the whole connection to potentially being the monster of Florence?
No.
Interesting. So there was an Italian serial killer
Whoa.
who was active. He committed 8 double murders between 1968 and 1985.
Okay.
And they were all couples. A lot of them were stabbed. Some of them were shot.
Interesting.
The weird detail is that he cut the uteruses out of several women.
Oh, what the hell?
Yeah, so it was like a super fucked up like
Jesus.
murder. And it's a pretty like weak... It's kind of like that Robert Nichols guy, just kind of like fucking, I don't know, serial killer, like 1968.
Yeah.
Like, gotta be the...
Why not?
Could have been... I guess it's conceivable that he traveled back and forth, and maybe that's why the murder stopped in the 70s, because he went to Italy and...
Yeah.
And if there was 8 murders in Italy, then maybe that would add to his 5
I'd be
confirmed.
interested.
That would make 13.
That'd make 13. Whoa.
Interesting.
And then he did his thing after that and got up to 37.
Right.
So,
Wait.
yeah, I'd be interested to see the dates.
8 double murders, I wrote, but does that mean...
Oh, wait.
That's 16 victims?
Yeah, is that 16 people or 8 people total? No, wait, that can't be 8 people total. It's gotta be 16.
It's gotta be 16.
Because 8 double murders couldn't be... Yeah.
That's not conceivable.
Stupid.
Anyways,
so... Mariner and our terrible math.
Yes.
We're learning a lot of things
So
today.
that was just kind of another like random little like, oh, maybe they're the same guy.
Maybe it was that guy.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
But...
My other cool theory that I found was, so there's this dude, I forget, again, shitty research on my part, who the guy, I mean, this is not like just one guy, but there was one guy in particular that was kind of outlining this theory that the killings, of course, people really got murdered, but maybe they weren't necessarily all the same person. Again, they don't really all match up that much. Aside from the thing that connects them for the most part are the letters and the phone calls and that weird scrawling on the car.
Yeah.
So his theory is that the killings were real, they weren't the same guy, and it was the letters and the calls were like a hoax. It was somebody taking credit for the killings that didn't actually kill these people. So this is based on a few different things. Like, he said in like a letter or two that he was giving details that like only the police would know.
Right.
And this guy was kind of outlining the fact that like the police, that like seems like it's not that many people, but that's kind of a lot of people. Plus that also includes some like reporters.
Right.
Who would get details early on to like make their articles and whatever. So there were really a lot of people that had access to that information that could, I mean, I'm assuming the theory here is that it's potentially somebody kind of on the inside that is either doing this or is feeding information to somebody else. So like some examples, in his letter where he claimed credit for that Lake Herman Road killing, he says that the girl was wearing patterned slacks, but the police report states that she was wearing a blue and white flowered slack dress. The blue and white flowered part was kind of written over some other typing, so you couldn't really totally like make that part out, but you could see the slack dress part.
Interesting.
So this guy had talked to his mom, who was about the same age in that time frame, and asked her what the hell a slack dress was, because he like Googled it and couldn't feel it. He was like, what the hell?
Right.
And she said that it was kind of like a, almost like nowadays, like the, what are they called? Like the, it's like a full body thing. Like it's like pants and like comes all the way up like a jumper almost, but like with sleeves.
Yeah.
But she said that the pants were like flowy enough that like it's a slack dress, because like the pants were flowy enough that it would almost look like you were wearing a dress.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
So is it possible that like this middle-aged dude just didn't know what a slack dress was and assumed that that meant slacks? Like if we're assuming that somebody just read the report
Right.
and was just like, I don't know.
Interesting.
And then wrote the letter based on that? Or it's equally possible that if the real killer wrote that, like he did this all super quickly,
Right.
maybe didn't get a good look at what the hell she was wearing and
He's
was just
like
like,
super
sure.
impulsive. He's all out there.
Like he's not memorizing their outfits.
No, he can barely fucking murder people, let alone
Exactly.
like pay attention to what they're wearing.
Yeah, he's not remembering all that stuff. So that was like one of the things. Another letter was interesting. He claimed, among other things, that he didn't leave Blue Rock Springs Park, quote, with squealing tires and racing engine, but instead, quote, drove away quite slowly. But the surviving victim and another witness said that he did, like, tear ass out of there. There was some other person that drove out slowly. They got stopped by police and then released. So, like, the theory was partly, like, was he trying to pin it on that other dude? Saying, like, no, I drove out really slowly.
Right.
But he left before that happened, like, before
so
the police got there, so he wouldn't have known that.
Interesting. Or he's trying to like save face. Like I wasn't panicking and squealing. Like I drove out of there nice and calm.
Exactly. And then the phone call reporting that murder was made a full 30 minutes after it had already been reported to police, which at that time could have been picked up on the police radio frequency. You didn't need a scanner. So he could have just heard that on the radio frequency and been like, oh, I'm going to call that in.
Interesting.
And it was incorrect in its directions. His call said to go 1 mile east from the police station when it was actually 2 miles north. But it was 1 mile east from the fire station, which is where he could have heard the police dispatch saying, go 1 mile east from the fire station, because that's where they would have sent the ambulance from.
Interesting.
Right? Like, that seems like, I mean, it's not a huge difference, but like,
right?
Why say go 1 mile east if you're not even correct?
Interesting.
Of course, the Lake Berryessa murder, like, was a random ass thing. It said that it was thought of as a lover's lane, but it was also a hotspot for drug deals. The man in that, the boy, man, whatever, in that killing was wearing 3 pairs of pants and 3 sweaters on the 4th of July. Not something that you normally wear.
No.
So was it possible that he was planning to break into homes and shed some clothes along the way? So maybe this was like something the police knew about or whatever, and they would just, it's easy to pin it on a serial killer.
Right.
Like the hood had his symbol, but I guess that had already been in the paper. So it wasn't the first time I guess we had seen that symbol.
Right.
And the writing on the car didn't quite match, but...
As we said, handwriting analysis is not a perfect science.
Exactly. Like one of the things they pointed out was like his J in his letters was like had this just particular squiggle to it.
Yeah.
And the J on the car didn't, but it's like...
You're writing under totally different
Exactly.
circumstances.
Like you're writing quickly on a car, like hunched over. So maybe it's going to look a little different. But he also didn't really take credit ever for that Lake Berryessa murder in any of his letters or his phone calls. He didn't call, or I thought it said that he did call that one in.
Yeah.
But he never mentioned it in any letters. He never like, whatever. So yeah.
That explains a lot of things, but there's a lot of holes as well. Like it explains the sort of like randomness of all of the murders because it was so many different people.
Yeah.
It kind of explains, like, it's a weird. I don't know, like his actions as a serial killer never seem like he's put together enough to like write these correspondences and like sit down and like, you know, doing ciphers is like very like detail oriented. So
yeah,
none of his murders seem detail oriented.
No,
but interesting.
The whole case is
fucking wild.
Ooh, like a mindfuck to me.
Before we get off this topic, so Ted Kaczynski.
Yes.
So I want to talk about that. So what I know about Ted Kaczynski is that he went to Harvard when he was very young. He definitely had like a manifesto, and he had like a very strong political and social point of view. And all of his murders or his, you know, bombing campaign was very politically driven. Whereas the Zodiac, super sporadic. He doesn't really seem to have a what's the word I'm looking for? Like
belief system.
Yeah, belief system. He didn't. There wasn't any like values. He wasn't espousing any kind of like political anything, and he didn't even have a very strong point of view or even a strong sense of who he was as a serial killer.
No, not at all.
So people have said that it could have been Ted Kaczynski, probably because of the whole bombing aspect of it. Maybe he like figured out like, oh, murder's not for me. I'm just gonna mail fucking bombs.
Yeah.
And I could kind of see that, but I just don't think like if you look at who the two are as people, I don't think that Ted Kaczynski, plus Ted Kaczynski going to Harvard and writing his manifesto, it's not rife with misspellings
Right.
in the way that like the Zodiac's communications were. I
Yeah.
mean, like maybe the cryptogram whole angle kind of checks
Yeah.
out because like he was definitely mathematically minded and was capable, like Ted Kaczynski was capable of cryptology, cryptography.
Cryptography? I'm not sure.
That's maps. I don't
Yeah.
know. Anyways, cryptozoology.
We're dumb.
Yeah, we're struggling this episode.
So dumb.
But yeah. So I don't think it was Ted Kaczynski.
Yeah. No, it's a week.
If you had to
Weak
put your money
connection.
on who you thought the Zodiac was, who would it be? Do you think we've talked about who it could be, or do you think it'll be out of left field?
I don't know. They tested the DNA of Arthur Lee Allen versus, well, I guess they had tested the DNA of the stamps
Yes.
on a couple of letters, but then they found out that it was actually like DNA from the front of the stamp, not the
Right,
back.
which could have been touched by anybody.
Could have been touched by anybody. And they did also say that his handwriting, like one of the handwriting experts said that he had like gotten like boxes worth of Arthur Lee Allen's handwriting and that it like wasn't
Right.
at all. Which again, like the handwriting analysis, I know that's not airtight,
Right.
but you have to think if somebody's like, dude, not even close,
Right.
that it's not even close. So I don't know. He seems like a convenient person. There's kind of part of me that just thinks that we just don't know
Right.
who this guy is.
It could be someone just out of left field.
Which is crazy. And which makes me wonder, like, it'd be wild to me if he did all this and then, like, communication dropped off just because he, like, disappeared.
Stop doing it.
Yeah, just stopped. Or, obviously, there's a chance that, in whatever way, like, he died
Right.
shortly after, and maybe that's what stopped him.
Or maybe he went to jail for an unrelated crime.
Yeah, he could be, there could be anything. So I'd be really curious to see if anything, if that DNA testing of the stamps comes up with anything, which I did read that it's potentially unlikely just because the quality of those materials has probably eroded quite a bit since the late 60s, early 70s.
It would be a partial DNA match that they could use to exclude suspects, not definitively find anybody.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever know. And I think, again, I really think that he's a lot more prolific in this like vision that we've built up of him than he really was. Because I think, he was like messy. He was all over the place.
Yeah. Overall, I think he's way more of a serial killer that is more interesting and more prolific on paper than he ever was in real life.
Exactly. He only really killed for like a year.
Yeah. He wasn't even great at communicating with the police. Like,
No.
The fact that his ciphers haven't been solved could, I guess, be a check in like the plus column of him like being good at it. But I think he made the ciphers too hard.
Yeah.
And like maybe he could have had one cipher that they didn't crack, but I get the impression that the public wasn't keeping up with him the same way that he wanted to. Like the fact that he had to send that clue about like radians on that map just shows that he was
Hey.
frustrated that like, nobody was able to solve the ciphers.
Yeah.
So he wasn't even great at communicating because he didn't communicate everything he wanted to.
No.
He just seemed like he had these grand ideas and was like just enough of a go-getter to like go actually murder people and mail these letters, but like not good enough to be good at it.
He wasn't great.
No.
So a little disappointed as a whole. But I would still be interested
Yeah.
if they catch somebody.
Oh yeah.
Because it would be pretty epic.
It would be wild. Like, I mean, I had mentioned it before, but like they just caught the Golden State Killer.
Yep.
Using DNA from one of the crime scenes, sent it through a database like Ancestry.com and found his family and then profiled the people in the family and they found his name's like Richard D'Angelo or something. Just this, he looks like a serial killer.
Yeah.
Oh, But he was like a cop.
Yeah.
At the time, super out of left field. There was actually a photograph of him like in the newspaper at the time. So like, it's just crazy. Like, I'm sure, like going back, I'd be interested to research the Golden State Killer and what we thought we knew about him versus what we now know about him because I bet it's all super like different.
Yeah.
Nobody saw him being a cop. Nobody ever expected that.
No.
So what if the Zodiac was
Kinda crazy.
like you're saying? Like what if he was like a firefighter?
Right. He could have been he could have been a reporter. He could have been a police officer. He could have like just worked at the station and had access to these reports and these letters and stuff. So yeah, there's really no telling. There's really nothing. The only really thing that kind of, even the fact that he had the scraps of the shirt from the cab driver. Yeah,
that
of course.
Was the only hard evidence.
That was the only hard evidence, yeah.
So whoever this was could have just killed that one guy.
He could have killed that one guy. Or, again, if he worked in the system somehow. Like anybody who had access to that crime scene could have gotten scraps of that shirt.
Right.
So that's not even a guarantee of anything.
Right.
And again, the fact that he sent like multiple scraps to be like, hey, like that's like all he had to give was just like
from that same shirt.
I killed this guy. So I mean, yeah, who knows? And it could have even could have been somebody faking the letters and the phone calls and then deciding to like do a murder for real.
Right.
To be like, yeah, no, I'm really doing this.
Which is why it's so different tonally from everything else.
Exactly. Like, which is so weird. Like, why not? You knew what the other murders were. Like, why not find a couple?
Right.
Kill somebody in a car. But who knows? So yeah, I'd rather think that he's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Or he's dead.
Yeah. I would like to think that he's dead.
He could very easily be dead regardless because, again, he would be at least in his 80s.
Yeah.
So there's a good chance that he died somewhere along the way.
Or he's in a nursing home somewhere.
Yeah, he's in a nursing home somewhere.
Near you.
Which is fucking crazy. And he's like, dude, there was a movie about me with Jake Gyllenhaal in it. And
Yeah,
people are talking on podcasts about me.
I'm going to look into seeing Zodiac again because I want to see how it matches up.
I do too. So,
Interesting.
Yeah, this
was a good episode.
It was a good episode. This was the Zodiac Killer.
Definitely a long one.
This was maybe our longest episode.
Yeah.
No, I think Mothman was probably
as
long or longer.
Well, I mean, like, Zodiac, man, like,
it's just a lot of shit.
There's a lot of shit.
A lot of letters. More letters than kills.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's our summary of the Zodiac. Not super impressed.
No.
Still a cool one. Glad I know what I know.
Yeah, me too.
Happy to learn it. But
definitely not my favorite serial killer.
No, he's low on the list.
Yeah.
So, we will do more interesting serial killers, I promise.
Right.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Zodiac.
This was episode
20?
I think it's 20.
I think it's 20.
Okay.
We should really figure that out beforehand. I should put that at the top of the notes.
Yep.
We're gonna Nate laughed at us last time. He was like, both of you 18, 19. I was like, I was the one who was right. And he was like, still makes you sound dumb. Great.
Hey, whatever.
So yeah, episode 20. Zodiac Killer.
This has been Unknowable.
Unknowable. Love you.